First up, candidate for mayor, we invite Mr. Michael Blair. Or you can stand with the microphone.
I'll just stand with the microphone, that's okay. I'm not going to break into song, don't be worried about that. I love to be here because I came up to Collingwood first in 1988 and I lived at the top of the tower here for about 10 years. And moved to Aurora when I married a young, beautiful woman who preferred to live in Aurora, Newmarket. And when she found somebody she liked better, I came back. I'm back here. I'm going to ask her one question first, and it's one that's, I think, as a former resident of Ruperts Landing, is an important question, and that is, we need a traffic light right across the road here between us. I don't know who has jurisdiction, but to the extent the town is able to deal with it, it's unsafe the way it is, and I've always found like turning left out of here, I was putting my life in somebody else's hands. As I get older, it gets worse. So I'll go on. In terms of what I'm doing as a candidate for mayor and recognizing that the mayor has one vote on council, so what you have to do is lead and get people to agree with you or nothing's going to happen. So I'm doing two things. First of all, I've raised in material by now, many of you have seen 5 pieces of my platform, and they're pretty straightforward. I don't have to rehash them here. I want lower taxes. I want absolute clarity in terms of openness on council, and I know how procedures to get that. I want to improve town services and make sure we're ready for the 10,000 people that are going to move here in the next decade, and that we're ahead of the game with respect to services and service industrial land and so on, so that we can get from there. And I'm a cyclist, and in 2012 I was knocked off my bicycle in Aurora, not here. Fractured skull, 7 broken ribs, broken shoulder blade. They told me in Sunnybrook I might be a paraplegic. I'm not, thank goodness for that. But cycling safety is important to me, and I'd like to see us pave the shoulders and provide cycling lanes when we're redoing our roads and highways, because I see a lot of young families out on the road. And finally, Collingwood has banned Airbnb, and I think that's a mistake. I think we need to license it and regulate it to make sure the places being rented are safe, that they've been inspected, that we limit the number of people that can have Airbnbs, but some people need that income. And we're a vacation resort, so I think having that open to people is a good idea. And of course, not everybody agrees with me on that, but that's where I'm coming from. As many of you know, I have a lot of experience on public boards of directors and no municipal council experience of any kind. So I'm going to try to bring in the kind of governance that I'm familiar with to the town. And I'm going to try, if I can, to urge voters to find out which of the councillor candidates have common ideas so that they can elect a council that won't be discordant. We want to have people that can actually get things done. And there has to be differences of opinion, but they can't be diametrical opposites with entrenched views, in my view. So I don't need to say any more than that. And I'm out of time.
3 minutes.
How perfect is that, eh?
Please take a question from the floor.
One from the floor.
Questions from the floor?
Yes, sir.
The lighting system going through the town and across Canadian Tire, none of our lights are synced. Okay, so which adds to the congestion of calling the traffic congestion. The town council has not ever wanted to spend the money to sync those lights. What is your opinion on syncing the lights around Collingwood?
I think the traffic control software that exists today can allow you to do almost anything. One of the businesses that was under my stewardship as a vice president of GE was traffic control. So I think it's a question of will. It's not a question, in other words, you need direction to the town staff or the people responsible, maybe the province, I don't know. But I agree with you. We're having a real traffic problem and it's going to grow. And so I think having the lights not just be synced, but also recognize the amount of time it takes pedestrians who are my age to get across the road. It's not when we used to sprint. And that we need to recognize there's bicyclists that need to cross the road. So the whole issue of traffic control is an important one.
The second mayoral candidate to come up is Brian Saunderson.
Good morning. Thank you very much to Ruperts Landing for hosting this event. It's an ambitious one, so I'll keep my comments short. When I stood before you 4 years ago running for deputy mayor, I was the candidate of change. So I'm going to address topic number 10, which is Collingwood is changing our you. And over the last 4 years, I think this town has changed dramatically, and I think this council has changed its approach to how we govern your town dramatically. When I stood before you 4 years ago, I said I had 3 priorities. One was to get a community-based strategic plan, the other was to look at our financial health, and the third was to have open and accountable government. What we did within the first year of our mandate was do a very ambitious community-based strategic plan in which we asked you to tell us your priorities and how you wanted your council to structure our governance processes. And you came back and told us 5 things. You wanted accountable local government, you wanted to revitalize waterfront, you wanted us to work on economic development, you wanted arts and culture, and you also wanted healthy lifestyles. People are moving here for healthy lifestyles. And over the last 4 years, this council has worked extremely hard on all 4 of those fronts. I don't have a lot of time, so I'll go through very quickly. In terms of accountable government, we have done dramatic changes. We've changed our committee system, so no staff reports can come to council without first going through a standing committee, which invites public engagement and public opportunity to speak. You can also speak on anything you want at any of those council meetings. It doesn't have to be on the agenda. All of that has to happen before it comes to council, so we're getting your input. We've changed the way we do our budgeting process. It's all done by program-based budgeting, so it's more simple for us to understand and for you to understand. It's not just 3 binders that are about a foot thick telling us on a line-by-line item. We have changed the way we do voting at council. It's all recorded now, so you can track our voting records on any issue. It's not left to guessing. You will know how each council member voted on every issue, and that's moving forward. We have live streamed our council meetings and committee meetings, so you can follow us all times. You don't have to be physically there. All of these things have changed and opened up our governance, and we can do things better as we move forward. We will be looking to adopt the recommendations of the judicial inquiry, and we'll be looking to create a lobbyist registry. Had one been in place in 2012, the payment to the mayor's brother would not come as a surprise today. In terms of the waterfront master plan has been completed. We've just finished the first stage of stage 1 in Harborview Park with the Awan's Gathering Circle. That's been opened and is in place. And that's the first part of the larger development, which is a splash pad, concession booth, and change rooms down at the Harborview Park. And in the winter will become skating rink with a skating trail throughout the park. And we have $2.8 million in reserve for that. In terms of financial responsibility, this council has reduced your debt by over $12 million. We started at 39. We're now down to under 27, and we'll be at 25 at the year end. And that is a reduction of approximately 40% and our lowest since 2007. If I'm elected, I will continue all of these changes, and I will push this forward to become a progressive community. Thank you.
I don't know who the right person to ask the question, but you brought up the subject, so it's coming to you. 8 years ago, when Sandra ran for mayor, we had a controversy with the mayor before, so we elected a new mayor. This time, she may not be running for election because of the controversy, or maybe 8 years just enough. The controversy is the $12 million, which is at least 15–20% of the municipal budget. I don't understand how the council, with 8 people, 7 councilors as deputy mayor, that only one person managed to ask the question, only one person managed to vote against a single funding issue that is $12 million, that nobody would even think. Maybe there wasn't another company that was able to vote, but certainly somebody should have asked some questions when you're funneling $12 million to one company.
That's an excellent question, and the individual who voted against both those things is running for deputy mayor, Keith Hall, and he's here today.
Yes,
So,
yes, I know.
but to answer your question, it's a long one. But the short answer is I can't answer what happened in 2012, and that's why we're having a judicial inquiry. If we don't know the answers about how a significant asset like that was dealt with, if we don't know how that money was spent, if we don't know how that money passed through town hall, then we have an obligation to look into that. We hold those funds in trust for you. Those are your funds that we're investing on your behalf. And if we can't track how that was done, we've got a problem, and our obligation is to find out how that was done. So that's the purpose for the judicial inquiry, and we will certainly be treating this very seriously and adopting all of the recommendations. You don't go into a decision like that lightly. And this council had grave concerns. We heard from 3 consultants about the structure of our relationship with Collis. We heard from 3 law firms, our own lawyers, our energy lawyer, and subsequently Will McDowell, all saying there are major red flags that we can't explain. It doesn't mean necessarily there was wrongdoing. It just means we didn't do it well, and we should do things well. And that's why I'm a candidate for change.
And finally, for the office of mayor, I'll invite up John Trude.
Thank you, sir. And thanks to Ruperts Landing for allowing this forum. Several good questions, several good comments already. So I will choose to answer, in Collingwood's diverse population of weekenders, full-time people, seniors, etc., how do you address the priorities of the varied and growing population? Surprisingly enough, the priorities of all three cited are not that different. There's been many, many studies done. There's been public input. There's been plans put together. And the priorities are identified in our growth plan. The preservation of the ecology, the development of the waterfront, the concerns regarding growth, transportation, and affordable housing. Those are all common concerns of everyone. As relating to affordable housing, there's so many things that may be done, but that is generated or initiated at a county level with funding, of course, available from the provincial level, and then driven down to the local level. Right now, the county is completing 2 large buildings at High and, well, Murray Court actually, but High and First Street. And those will be ready very, very soon. What we can do locally for affordable housing is second suites on site, rentals, Habitat for Humanity. There's all kinds of issues that we can implement here that will actually, in the short term and the midterm, assist people to hopefully in the long term getting their own home. What we also have to do is work cooperatively with our neighbors to actually provide transportation from another municipality where accommodations may be a little more reasonable. Those people still have to get to work. And so recently, cooperatively between Wasaga Beach, Blue Mountains, Collingwood, and Clearview, there has been a pilot project implemented to expand bus hours for public transit from one municipality through to all the other 3. That assists people to get to work, and the more people can work, the more affordable housing may become. There's some things you can affect. The price of housing is really not one of them. But you can work collectively with the private sector to create zoning issues that will encourage affordable housing and attainable housing to be put in place. There's no short-term solution, so there's short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals, and the county has recently just come out with a 10-year plan, and it's going to be implemented and address all the issues. Waterfront, I'll shut up. But I look forward to discussing. I look forward to discussing with you, maybe person to person. Thank you very much.
I think to be fair, if there are no, okay.
No,
but just going forward, if there are no questions, there are. But if for some reason there isn't a question for a candidate, I'll allow the candidate a minute to expand on something else that they wish to, so everybody gets equal time. Go ahead.
John, our hospital has become a very contentious issue. I'd like to hear what you have to say about it. We've certainly heard what our other council did. Where are we now, and how do you see this going forward?
I saw the question on the list, and to specifically address and answer that question, there is no controversy now. As of the 27th of July, there was a motion passed by the current council to support the site at the Poplar Side Road and request a ministerial direction for the rezoning of that property.
Why so long?
You're asking the wrong person.